Hi, today I'm going to make some hand-painted abstract cards. So I've taped down my cards to keep them flat, and I've put masking tape around the edges so that I can peel it off and have a nice white border afterwards. And I'm doing a few at a time, and it's for an exhibition in Dorset that's going to be in May. And I'm allowed to, as well as paintings, I'm allowed to submit some cards, 35 cards. So I've decided to make some, and they're going to be in shades of blues and greens and whites because it's a seaside area where the exhibition is, and so obviously I'm inspired by the sea. So I'm starting off by wetting the paper and then putting some acrylic inks down. I'm using green and blue and then blending them, and this is supposed to be a splash of water or a wave, and I'm going to do all the cards the same so I can do a set of them. And so this is just the base layer, and I'm going to layer up lots of different aspects of patterning and texture and materials to try and add some interest to them. And then at the end I'll peel off the masking tape and reveal what they look like. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm hoping these will work. So there we go, I've got some big splashes, some water effects, and I'm trying to make it look as though they're not too, they haven't got strict edges. Even though the brush I used was a flat brush, I'm trying to spread them out a bit the way the water does. So while they're still wet, I'm going to carry on working into them and just mopping up a little bit of spillage there. And then I'm going in now with some charcoal. So I'm doing some mark making, but it's not just the charcoal. I'm actually picking up some of the ink as well and including that in some of the mark making. I'm holding it right at the very end to make the marks quite loose. I don't want them to be structured in any way. And I'm trying to recreate that haphazardness of the ocean, the movement and the eddying backwards and forwards and all the different aspects of the ocean. Now coming in with a bit of white acrylic paint that is picking up some of the blue. And I'm trying to add that in a different direction from the initial splash. So it's that movement of the water. I'm trying to catch a very fluid movement of the water. And again, while they're still wet, working into them. And I'm adding a few splashes now. I've put some water into the white, and and that's to be foam, the foam on the waves. So I'm splashing into it with some dots, which is another reason I've got the tissue at the back and the tape around the edges. Now I'm putting in a flash of colour which could be the marine life, it could be some of the plants, or it could just be points of interest, just something to take your eye away from the monotony of the blue. And this is to just add a bit of zing, a little bit of zing. So I'm doing a few lines now, just adding some interest, because the sea isn't just water and waves. So we've got some white here and I've got some blue as well. And I'm putting in some different aspects. So it's picking up some of the blue. So it's not just too standard white. I'm putting in some scribbles, some eddies, some circles, a couple of whirlpools, and just working into the paint. Now I'm putting in some tiny detail. I'm trying to change every time I pick up a new material. I'm trying to use something that's a sort of juxtaposition from what's gone before. I don't want to just do the same thing over and over. So I started off with loose splashes, and now I'm doing some very, very tight little drawings in black pen. And now coming in with a Posca marker, adding some pink. I'm looking for that contrast again. I'm looking for a juxtaposition of colours, of textures, of marks, to keep the eye interested, so the eye will move around the page and catch all the different details. And I chose the colours I wanted to use beforehand. So I'm putting in a bit more blue, going over some of those so they don't stand out too much. So a bit more water in there. So I'm hoping it will resemble the seaside, it will resemble the British landscape of the coast with the water that comes crashing up. Now I'm adding a bit of metallic blue to get that shimmer of the water when it catches the light. I'm putting that on the top there. And it's hoping to resemble reflections. So I've used graphic pens. Now I'm using some oil pastel, some purple oil pastel, to bring in a bit of a different direction. Again, going over, so it's not just a block of colour, it's taking the eye and directing it in different areas. Now going back in with a bit of blue ink, dark blue ink, to make a contrast against the pale white. And I'm going in with that wet and letting it just spread where it wants to spread to. Now I'm making some white very wet again and adding more splashes, and I'm trying to get the splashes into the very dark ink so that when they blend together they'll create some interesting shapes and textures, because the two paints are very different consistencies. The ink's very liquidy, and now I'm spraying it with a bottle to make those areas spread out a bit and try and get them to deliberately blend. Again, another reason why I put the tape on the side. I'm hoping that the paper underneath will still be white once I peel it off. Tilting it to try and make it run in a particular way. Oh, what's happened there? I used to paint tornadoes from the time that I lived in Texas, and I used to paint those in a similar way, where I'd apply all the paint and then I'd tilt the canvases in different directions to try and get the shapes of the tornadoes. So these are looking quite multi-layered at the moment, which I'm pleased with, and I think they're showing the influence of the seaside and the water and the waves. I'm happy with those effects. And now it's just keep going, working it on them until they look right. And only you know when they look right. I'm pleased with the blending of the blue and the white. And I'm pleased with the fact you can still see some of the initial green underneath as well. Now going in with some of the contrasting dark blue again. And that's just how I do an abstract painting. I'll just keep going and adding different layers and picking up different materials until I think it's finished. Now adding some more of the splashes, because I've lost some of them underneath there. Get some of the splashes back in for reflection and for the foam of the water and the waves. I like the fact that you can still see some of the pink and some of the yellow in each picture. And now I'm going in and I'm putting in some more whirlpools, some scribbles to represent the whirlpools and eddies. And I'm doing that with black and with white pens. And I want these whirlpools to show that we're looking at water, to show that it's the surface of the water that we can see. So more splashes, more whirlpools, bit of tilting, and there we are. I've taken off the tape. Here's what they look like. So you can see the swirling whirlpools of water, the reflections from the metallic paint. I think they've worked okay. I'm very happy with the way that they've turned out.